Are there people in your life right now whose perception of what is happening in the US feels like they're living in an alternative universe? If you're in that situation, I just want to begin by extending love to you. Like, I know how tough that is. And then I'd like to offer some language to help you establish some respectful boundaries. Now, many of us were not taught how to speak assertively. In fact, many of us, and I'm talking about like the collective us, we weren't given permission to align with our power. It's actually quite the opposite. Our power was often ripped away, leaving us without the support or the tools to speak up in ways that were clear and firm. And I can go even further and state that many of us didn't even know we had any power because we've been left powerless, right? And then when we finally do try to speak up, it can feel absolutely and completely terrifying. And that fear is what keeps us from truly speaking our truth. But here's the thing. This is the time. If there was ever a time to find your voice, it's now. And this is where our healing comes into play. This is why healing, even in the midst of all of the things that are happening right now, is so significantly important. Because we are called right now to speak our truth, even when it's uncomfortable. So I want to guide you through the process of becoming a more effective communicator when it comes to setting clear boundaries. And I'm just going to give you a couple little tips. Okay. But first, I want to look through a spiritual lens. Now, I want to just share kind of our journey. We all come into this dense third density world with no memory of our prior lifetime, no awareness of the truth of who we are, and no recollection of our soul's wisdom. Now, I will tell you that children coming in are going to come with more of this than we did, but this is where we're at. Okay. We're born into these little human suits, I guess, brains and bodies that develop based on our experiences. So self-awareness, self-reflection, introspection, empathy, they're not innate. Those skills don't just magically happen. They actually have to be taught and nurtured and supported. Now, we do see very young children show early signs of empathy, but if it's not modeled, encouraged, and consistently present in their lives, it doesn't really grow. So, spiritually speaking, we start life in this very unconscious state of awareness where ego is in the driving seat. And along with ego are judgment and blame. So what happens in this unconscious level of awareness is that we're constantly comparing and competing and trying to be better than, so that we can climb up this hierarchical social ladder. And then when that doesn't happen, well, we project blame outward. And at this level of awareness, self-reflection is very minimal and self-awareness is even scarcer. Does that sound familiar? Because yeah, that's what's playing out across the United States. It's an unconscious state of awareness, but that's a whole different video. That's a whole different video. So let me go back to becoming an effective communicator, okay? Especially when you're needing to establish some boundaries. Now, there are two things that I want you to remember. Everyone wants to be heard. It doesn't matter what the message is. It doesn't matter if the person you're listening to makes zero sense to you, okay? Everyone wants to be heard. Now, and this is why people repeat themselves over and over and over and over again, because they don't feel like people are actually hearing them, okay? Now, number two is most of us are not effective listeners. We hear words, but we really don't listen with the intent to understand. The moment someone starts talking, our brains go into this place of, do I agree? Do I disagree? How does this relate to me? And so we jump into our own narratives without truly absorbing what's being said. So when you're in a heated conversation, the first thing you do is to try to understand the other person's perception. And man, that's hard because we're all activated. we're wanting to fight back, right? We have to build our capacity. That's what we have to do, is build our capacity to be able to engage in these conversations and not be activated. Okay. And this is when you start to stand in your truth. So when you are in a heated conversation, the first thing to do is to try to understand the other person's perspective, even when you believe they're spouting nonsense. Because if you're not really listening, you're just adding to the noise. Okay. So here's the key. You want to practice the process of listening without reacting. This is where your own healing comes into play. See, when you learn to stand firm in your beliefs and in your power, knowing the truth of who you are, you can recognize someone else's perspective without taking it personal, without actually hearing this notion, I guess, that you're wrong. And that's really hard, especially if you're a mama bear like me, who wants to protect people who have historically been silenced. Okay, but it's really, really important. This is the time for our own healing, especially when we're in the midst of all of this chaos right now. We've got to learn how to step into our personal power, to access and align with that, so that we do feel strong enough to be able to speak our truth. Now, if you can influence someone's perspective, that's amazing. Have those meaningful conversations. But let's be real. A lot of folks, and yes, I'm talking about the ones supporting the orange guy, aren't in the place where their perspectives are going to shift. Now, I practice the process of not coming from a place of judgment. So it just is what it is. It's not like those people, them, it's not that. It just is what it is. Some folks are in different levels of awareness, functioning from an unconscious state where there is blaming and deflecting and seeing threats everywhere. We do not want to align with that energy. We do not want to align with that energy, because that energy is coming from fear. And yes, I know we're angry, and I know we feel irate and frustrated and irritated and all of those things. But when we stay in that space, we align with the energy that's fueling the shadows, because this is actually our collective shadows showing up. We're fueling that energy, and we don't want to do that. We want to stay in the space of love. I will say that anger and irritation and frustration and all of those things can be good to propel us into action. And then we want to return back to the state of knowing that we are here on behalf of the collective, rooted in love. Okay, so this is how you set boundaries. You want to listen to understand, and then you want to paraphrase back what you've heard. So I'm going to give you an example. Someone might say to you, okay, there's lots of stuff that we can kind of talk about here, right? But I'm not going to go there. What I'm going to say is, so you believe ICE's actions are necessary and justified. That's your perspective. Yeah, that's my perspective, and that's the right way, right? Well, my beliefs are different. And the likelihood of you and I agreeing on this is probably slim to none. These conversations feel very unproductive to me. And honestly, we're just going to go in circles. So if this topic comes up again without the consideration of having a true conversation, of recognizing the real impact in people's lives, I'm going to walk away. See, you're not trying to change their mind. You're saying, if this happens, then this is what I'm going to do. Okay. Now, here's another situation that I'm seeing a lot on videos and posts. If you live with somebody who dismisses your concern, like maybe they're saying, oh, you're overreacting, nothing's going to happen like it did in Germany, that would never happen here in the United States, you could say something like this: you don't think things are serious right now, and you think I'm overreacting. And I feel what's happening parallels historical events in Germany, among other historical events. And you are entitled to your beliefs, and I'm entitled to mine. So I'm going to prepare, whether that's a bug out bag or making a plan, because I would rather be ready for the unexpected. Now, I'd love for you to understand my sense of urgency, but if you dismiss it or if you minimize my concerns, I'm going to need to step back and I'm going to need to walk away. Because right now I'm processing a lot, and debating this is not helpful to me. Okay. So setting boundaries isn't about winning arguments. It's about honoring your truth, protecting your peace, and knowing when to walk away. And the key is, please, please don't expect your brain and body to be able to pull this language out when you are activated, when you've been triggered, when you feel heated and frustrated and irritated and even angry. Right? You're not going to be able to access this language. You have to practice it. You have to practice the language when you're driving, practice the language when you're getting ready in the morning, practice it. So your brain will be familiar with this new language. And so when you do have to pull it up, right, to access it, you'll be able to do so. Okay. So save this video so that you can get the language and practice it. I hope it's helpful to you.